Little John and the Tenor of Blyth. One fine day, not long after Little John had left a bait with the sheriff, and had come back with his worship's cook, to the merry greenwood as he just been told, Robin Hood and a few chosen fellows of his band lay up on the soft sward beneath the greenwood tree where they dwelt. The day was warm and sluttery, so the while most of the band were scattered through the forest upon this mission and upon that, these few stout fellows lay lazily beneath the shade of the tree, in the soft afternoon passing yeast among themselves, and telling merry stories with laughter and mirth. All the air was laden with the bitter fragrance of the May, and all the bosky shades of the woodlands beyond rang with the sweet song of birds. The throstle cock, the cuckoo, and the wooden pigeon, and with the song of the birds mingled the cool sound of the gurgling brook that leaped out of the forest shades and rang threatening amid its wrath, grey stones across the sunlit open glade before the trysting tree. And a fair sight was that half-score of tall, stout yeomen all clad in Lincoln green, lying beneath the broad-spreading branches of the great oak tree, amid the quivering leaves of which the sunlight shivered and fell in dancing patches upon the grass. Suddenly Robin Hood smote his knee. "By Saint Dustin," quoth he, "I had nigh forgot the quarter-day cometh on apace, and yet no cloth of Lincoln green in all our straw. It must be looked to, and that in quick season. Come, busk thee, Little John, stir those lazy bones of thine, for thou must get thee straightway to our good gossip, the draper Hugh Longshanks of Ancaster. Bid him send us straightway 20 yards of fair cloth of Lincoln green, and mayhap the journey may take some of the fat from off thy bones, that thou hast gotten from lazy living at our dear sheriff's." "Nay," muttered Little John, for he had heard so much upon his score that he was sore upon the point. "Nay, truly, mayhap I have more flesh up on my joints than I once had, yet, flesh or not flesh, I doubt not that I could still hold my place and footing up on a narrow bridge, against a yeoman in Sherwood or Nottinghamshire, for the matter of that, even though he had not more fat about his bones than thou hast, good master." At this reply a great shout of laughter went up, and all looked at Robin Hood, for each man knew that Little John spake of a certain fight that happened between their master and himself, through which they first became acquainted. "Nay," quoth Robin Hood, laughing louder than all, "Heaven forbid that I should doubt thee, for I care not for taste of thy staff myself, Little John. I must needs own that those of my band can handle a 7-foot staff more deftly than I, yet no man in all Nottinghamshire can draw grey goose staff with my fingers. Nevertheless, a journey to Ancaster may not be ill for thee. So go thou as I bid, and thou hadst best go this way evening, for since thou hast abiden the sheriffs may know thy face, and if thou goest in broad daylight, thou mayest get thyself into a coil with some of his worship's men-at-arms. Bidden thou here till I bring thee money to pay out good Hugh. I warran ye have no better customs in all Nottinghamshire than we." So saying, Robin left them and entered the forest. Not far from the tree-string tree was a great rock, with a chamber had been hewn, the entrance being barred by a massive oaken door 2 palms' breadth in thickness, studded about with spikes, and fastened it with a great padlock. This was the treasure house of the band, and thither Robin Hood went, and unlocking the door, entered the chamber, from which he brought forth a bag of gold, which he gave to Little John to pay Hugh Longshanks withal for the cloth of Lincoln Green. Then up got Little John, and taking the bag of gold, with which he was trusted into his bosoms, he strapped a grindle about his loins, took a stout Pyle staff full 7 long in his hand, and set forth upon his journey. So he stood whistling along the leafy forest path that led to Fossey, turning neither to the right hand nor to the left, until at least he came to where the path branched, leading on the one hand onwards to Fossey, and on the other, as well Little John knew, to the Merry Blue Boar Inn. Here Little John suddenly ceased whistling, and stopped in the middle of the path. First he looked up, and then he looked down, and then, tilting his cap over one eye, he slowly scratched the back part of his head. For those was it. At the sight of these 2 roads, 2 voices began to allure him with him in. The one crying, "These lies the road to the Blue Boar Inn, and can of brown October, and a merry night with sweet companions such as thou mightest find there." The other, "There lies the way to Ancaster, and the dusty thou art set up on." Now the first of these 2 voices was far the louder, for Little John had grown a passing foot in of good living throughout abiding at the sheriff's house. So presently, looking up into the blue sky, across which bright clouds were sailing like silver boats, and swallows skimming in circling flight, quoth he, "I fear me it will rain this evening, so I'll e'en stop at the Blue Boar till it passes by, for I know my good master would not have me wet to the skin." So, without more ado, off he strode down in the path that lay the way of his linkings. Now, there was no sign of any foul weather, but when one wishes to do a thing, as Little John did, one findeth no lack of reason for the doing. 4 merry wags were at the Blue Boar Inn, a butcher, a beggar, and 2 barefoot friars. Little John heard them singing from afar, as he walked through the hustle of the mellow twilight that was now falling over the hill and dale. Right glad were they to welcome such a merry blade as Little John. Fresh cans of ales were brought, and with yeast and song and merry tales the hours slipped away on fleeting wings. None thought of the time, or tide till the night was so far gone that Little John put by the thought of setting forth upon his journey again that night, and so bided at the Blue Boar Inn until the morrow. Now it was an ill piece of luck for Little John that he left its duty for his pleasure, and he paid a great score for it, as well we are all apt to do in the same case, as you shall see. Up he rose at the dawn of the next day, and taking his stout pike staff in his hand, he set forth upon his journey once more, as through he would make up for lost time. In the good town of Blyth, there lived a stout tanner, celebrated far and near for feasts of strength, and many threw boats of wrestling and the quarterstaff. For 5 years he had held the mid-country champion belt for wrestling, till the great Adamo Lincoln cast him in the ring and broke one of his ribs, but at quarterstaff he had never yet met his match in all the country about. Besides all this, He dearly loved the longbow, and as Lee yawned in forest when the moon was full and the dun deer in season, so that the king's rangers kept a shrewd eye upon him and his doings, for Arthur a Blade's house was apt to have a plenty of meat in it that was more like aversion than the law allowed. Now, Arthur had been to Nottingham town the day before Little John had set forth on his errand, there to sell a half-score of tenant cowhides. At the dawn of the same day that Little John had left the inn, he started from Nottingham homewards to Blyth. His way led, all the dew morn, past the verge of Sherwood Forest, where the birds were welcoming the lovely day with a great and merry jubilee. Across the tanner's shoulders a slug of stout quarterstaff, ever near enough to him to be gripped quickly, and his head was a cap of doped cowhide, so thought that it could hardly be clothed even by a broadsword. Now, quoth Arthur a Bland to himself, when he had come to the part of the road that cut through the corner of the forest, no doubt at this time of the year the dun deer are coming from the forest depths, neither to the open meadow lands. Mayhap I may chance to catch a sight of the dainty brown darlings thus early in the morn, for there was nothing to laugh better than the look upon a tipping herd of deers, even when he could not tickle their ribs with a cloth-yard staff. Accordingly, quitting the path, he went peeping this way and that toward the underbush, spying now here and now there with all the wiles of a master of woodcraft and of one who had more than once done a daub of Lincoln Green. Now, as Little John stepped blithely along, thinking of nothing but such a thing as the sweetness of the half-tone buds that blackened the hedge growth, or gazing up on the larks that, springing from the dewest grass, huge aloft on quivering wings in the yellow sunlight, pouring forth its song that fell like a falling star from the skies, his luck held him away from the highway, not far from the spot where Arthur a Blade was sleeping his way, and that through the leaves of the thickness. Hearing a rustling of the branches, Little John stopped and presently caught sight of the brown cowhide cap of the tanner moving along the bushes. I do much wonder, quoth Little John in himself, what yon knave is after, that he should go thus peeping and peering about. I very believe that yon scurry velvet is no better than a thief, and cometh here after our own and the good king's dun deer. For by much roaming in the forest, Little John had come to look up on all the deer in Sherwood as belonging to Robin Hood and his band, and as much as to good King Henry. Nay, quoth he again, after a time, this matter must be looked into. So quitting the high road, he also entered the thickness, and began spying around after stout Arthur a Blade. So, for a long time, they both of them were hunting about, Little John after the tanner, and the tanner after the deer. At least Little John trod upon a stick, which snapped under his foot, whereupon, hearing the noise, the tanner turned quickly and caught sight of the yeoman. Seeing that the tanner had spied him out, Little John put a bold face upon the matter. Yellow, quoth he, what art thou doing here, thou naughty fellow? What art thou that coming ranging Sherwood's paths, in very smooth through hasty and evil cast of countenance? And I do think truly that thou art no better than a thief, and comest after our good king's deers. Nay, quoth the tanner boldly, for though taken by surprise, he was not a man to be frightened by big quick birds. Thou liest in thy teeth. I am not a thief, but an honest craftsman. As for my countenance, it is that what it is, and for the matter of that, thine own is none too pretty, thou saucy fellow. Ha! quoth Little John in a great loud voice. Wouldn't thou give me back talk? Now I have a great part of mind to crack thy pate for thee. I would have thee know, fellow, that I am, as it were, one of the king's foresters. Lastwise, muttering he to himself, I am a good friend, to do take care of our good sovereign dearns. I care not through who you are, answered the bold Janet, and unless thou hast many more of thine kind by thee, thou canst never make Arthur a blind, cry a mercy